Well, there's a new provocation from North Korea. This after reports that Pyongyang successfully performed what they called a crucial test at a long-range rocket launch site. This all happening as that end-of-year deadline set by dictator Kim Jong-un is looming. Kim wants major concessions from President Trump before he says talks on denuclearization will resume. Joe Rubin, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State, joins us now. Well, Joel, I guess it's back to Rocket Man. I mean, what's the significance of his continued provocations?
Yeah, Eric, it certainly is a very urgent moment right now, very serious crisis in this drama between President Trump and President Kim. And I have to say, President Kim has not been responsive enough to Donald Trump's diplomacy and his overtures. But that said, there's not a real plan to get over this hump that we're hearing from the White House. So the danger is that North Korea continues in this trajectory and it does more testing and advances its nuclear program without any real way to stop it.
From your experience, what do you think this crucial test is? A long range or extending the range of ICBMs that could hit even further in our country?
Well, it could be up to just underneath the threshold for the ICBMs and certainly potential distance to the West Coast if they're getting at that level of testing. But what we have to worry about as well is that the knowledge that they're going to develop from this is one that they can use as a new baseline for further testing. And it's not like there's an end date, Eric, where they suddenly stop learning and stop testing. This only increases their capacity to grow their arsenal's capacity. And frankly, that's something that we should be very concerned about because there are a lot of dangerous outcomes that could result.
You know, where does it stand now? We've been told that they potentially could hit the West Coast, perhaps even parts of the East Coast. And this, when they get to the bargaining table, if indeed they do, I mean, Steve Biegun, who is the North Korean our representative in the North Korean talks, he's heading to Seoul. That restarts tomorrow. He's having talks with the South Koreans, not the North. This means that they can come to the table with something even bigger than they have now.
Well, that's the danger in this dynamic, and it's always been the danger in the dynamic with North Korea is that one side can do something negative, North Korea in this case, and then the U.S., we can do something more negative, for example, impose more sanctions, which from the North Korea perspective is dangerous and negative. And so there's a rationing up, this sort of death grip that we're both in to be dark about it, but a real rationing up and grip that we can't get out of. And I think it takes a Donald Trump. I'll be very direct here. It takes the type of out-of-the-box thinker like a Donald Trump to break through this potential impasse. But he also has to do a lot more on diplomacy than he has. And delegating it as he has not borne fruit. He needs to lean in and in a sustained way because the kinds of incremental trade-offs that one can envision in a very rational negotiation just aren't happening. And North Korea's military and technical capacity continues to grow and threaten the regional neighbors and potentially us as well.
The president has been very proud of what he calls his beautiful relationship with Chairman Kim. What do you think the president should do, perhaps directly on the telephone or in communication with Kim, and would that achieve anything?
Well, I can't emphasize enough how important it is that he has that relationship, that he can talk to Kim, that Kim can talk to him. And that is a breakthrough, but it's just not enough at this stage. It had its moment. We have to build on it. But Kim, in a paradoxical way, has some leverage now on President Trump. President Trump said this past week that he didn't want North Korea or Kim to do anything that could harm him in the 2020 election. And that's telling Kim that Kim has some power over Trump. That kind of dynamic is not healthy for a negotiation. So the president, another summit, if they're going to do one, it has to be more than 1 or 2 days. It has to be 1 or 2 weeks, and it has to be with real concrete, comprehensive trade-offs that the two leaders can do because Steve Biegun going out there to the region right now is likely to come back with similar results as we've seen over recent months, which frankly is just not that much.
Yeah, and Kim himself, he has his own domestic pressures in his military-industrial complex that relies on a completely militarized and, war footing. I mean, doesn't he have his own internal pressure, even though he can execute someone at whim?
He is in that trap as well, where yes, he is the dictator, he's the ultimate leader there, but he can't just concede without results in his standing in his own society. That doesn't mean we have to be overly sensitive to how he feels, but we have to be very clear-eyed and rational in how we negotiate. And the president, he and Kim both have to make trade-offs and concessions, but they can't be in this dynamic now where they're starting to, again, claim power over one another. And we see Kim testing, then we see Trump maybe adding on more sanctions, and we're back to where we were 3 years ago, but after having had breakthroughs, which of course would make it an even more dangerous place.
Meanwhile, someone speaking out, and we've done a lot of reporting here on the Fox News channel on Otto Warmbier. The young 22-year-old young man just had his birthday this last week, by the way. Our thoughts and prayers are with the Warmbier family, Cindy and Fred. They have been activists. They are on a crusade to get justice for their families and for the other victims of this barbaric regime. They are now in Japan, meeting with families of the Japanese who have been basically kidnapped by the North Koreans. Here is Cindy Warmbier, Otto's mother, last month, talking about the North Korean regime and saying that she would like to go up to the DMZ, and this is what she would say. Take a listen.
I'm hoping to visit the DMZ and say, hello, I'm Otto's mom. I hate you. I hate you so much. But you can't hurt me anymore, so I'm coming out to see you. I want to look you in the eye and see evil and face it and know that as good people, we will win. We have to believe we can win, though. We cannot give up. We can't give them a pass. We have to fight with all of our power.
Warmbiers are brave and courageous. Your thoughts?
Well, to be a mother in this situation, it must just be devastating every day. We just had my youngest daughter's birthday party, and I see her running around, and as a parent, I couldn't even begin to feel the depths of frustration and pain that she must feel. And we have to listen to the family of Otto Warmbier, the mother of Otto Warmbier. We have to think about the people of North Korea, the human rights violations, those the Japanese families who suffered as well. That cannot be separate from the kind of engagement that we have with North Korea. And we had a meeting at the UN this past week where the United States decided to not have a human rights discussion about North Korea and instead to focus on some of these other issues that we're talking about. That's a bad signal as well. Ultimately, human rights are the most realistic of rights. It's about all of us on this planet. So kudos to her for being out there and being a guiding light for us.
Joe Rubin, very well said. We thank you, and we thank the Warmbiers for their courage.